Hi, this week I'd like to talk to you about consent. It's been on my brain a lot lately. Actually, consent is frequently on my brain. I think about it a lot, and not just because I'm a preventionist. I think about it as a male in this culture and have made it a sort of habit to think about it. More on that later. But it's been on my mind this past week because it's been in the news and across social media. There's been some hubbub in reaction to action in the California legislature. Now, this is action that actually started back at the beginning of the year, but it's been raising some eyebrows recently. This is the legislature looking at changing the language about consent in their statutes. Not the entire statute, but the part of their law that deals with the state college and university system. This would impact colleges and universities. It would impact the way in which you articulate and talk about consent on campus, and it would impact the way in which sexual assault was dealt with on campus and how potential cases would be prosecuted. It's called affirmative consent, and really when you boil it down, all it really adds up to is both parties need to assent or affirm that they understand and agree to what's about to happen. Now, there's been some backlash by some people because they think, oh my God, this is going to mean lawyers in the bedroom. Lots of forms to fill out and places to initial here and here, while you're trying to get it on. No, relax. Really what this is doing is simply moving us forward in the conversation around consent. We are woefully behind schedule on talking about this. By way of example, when I do workshops, one of the things I ask is, how do people get their sexual health education these days? Okay, we get sex ed from schools, somewhat, depending on the school system. But how do we learn what we think we know about sex? And of course, we get it from the popular culture, from movies and TV, and more these days from the World Wide Web. The point is that we get a lot of our social cues around sex and sexuality from the pop culture that surrounds us, the water we're swimming in. How does sex happen in the movies? It's a question you can ask participants. And of course, you'll get a lot of different answers, but a lot of them revolve around physicality. People just go at it. It just happens magically. The music swirls. He looks at her. She looks at him. Suddenly their faces are pressed together. Fill in the blanks. And we have to remind participants that this is fantasy. This is Hollywood. Actors are playing roles. They're following a script usually. They're frequently paid. Sometimes a lot, sometimes not a lot. And they have a director in the room who's usually calling the shots. When you're on a date with someone, there's no script. You and the other person are writing the script as you go. So how do you establish consent? How do you play out the scenario in your head and what you'd like to have happen versus what the other person might or might not like to have happen? How do you connect with that other human being? So that leads us to the other question. How do you know they want to kiss? Let's say a person you're attracted to is sitting right there with you right now, whether you're on a date or not, doesn't matter. You're attracted to them and you'd really like to kiss them. How do you establish that they'd like the same thing? The simple, logical response sometimes comes out of its own volition. You could ask. Great, you could ask. But before that, you usually have an awful lot of body language stuff. She looks at you. She looks away. She looks back at you. She wants you. You put your arm around them and they don't move away. I'm in. You move in and you get that certain je ne sais quoi. Body language is fine. It's real. I'm not negating it, but it's not the whole story. Sometimes I'll pick someone in the front row, inevitably a slouching participant, and I'll just say, I'm boring this person to death. Maybe, or maybe not. Maybe they've got an important exam coming up next period, or maybe they've had some sort of family situation last night that caused them to lose sleep. They've got a sick loved one, or there was a fight, or something, whatever. The point is there's a whole life being lived over here, and I can't possibly know the details simply by looking at what they're sending me. I'll say to participants, each and every one of you right now is sending me signals with your bodies. Now, of course, this will cause many of them to straighten up or sit upright in their chair or adjust what they're doing, and oh my God, what am I sending? I can't possibly know what's happening in that person's world unless I ask them. Ask them. They are the only authority on what they're feeling. So how do you know they want to kiss? Ask. Okay, do we ask? No, we really don't do that. Why don't we ask? It ruins the mood. It may ruin the mood, but what's the alternative? I'll just make a move, take a risk, and maybe perpetrate a sexual assault. And am I doing that simply to save my own ego? I think so. And this is where, as men, we really need to own up to this stuff and call each other out on it. One of the things I'll talk about in talking about body language and consent and sort of bringing the conversation full circle is I'll then throw out a scenario like this. Hypothetical situation. Let's say you go to a party. You're invited by a friend of yours to a friend of theirs. You've never met these people or been to their house. So you go. You and your friend mingle and you have some stuff to drink. I don't even mean alcohol specifically, just beverages. Enough so that after a while, you realize, you know what, I've got to use the bathroom. But just at that moment, your friend pulls you over. It's like, hey, I want to introduce you to so-and-so and so-and-so. It's their house we're at. So, you say hi, you make polite conversation. Oh, how do you know, da-da-da-da-da, etc. Hey, this is what makes parties fun, right? And you realize, of course, you have to use the bathroom as you're standing there talking to them. What do you do? Okay, you ask. Right, you ask. Why? Well, it's polite. It's expected. Right, it's polite. You don't know where the bathroom is. Right, asking is about getting information. 2 reasons. What's the third? This is where most audiences get stumped, absolutely stumped. But I insist there are 3 reasons why you're asking. Yes, it's polite and expected. Yes, it's for information. You need to know where the bathroom is. But there's a 3rd reason you ask. Why? Anyone? What is the likelihood that your hosts will say no? Okay, it can happen. It's not completely out of the realm of possibility, but it would be a really unusual situation, right? And therein lies the rub. Our willingness to ask a question increases dramatically in direct inverse proportion to the likelihood that the answer will be no. Take it full circle back to our original question. How do you know they want to kiss? And you're sitting there with someone you really want to kiss, and you're thinking, hey, it'd be really cool, and you want to know, and you've got this body language happening, but I don't know, if I ask a question, will it ruin the mood? And I look at pop culture, and I don't see many examples, particularly for men, many examples of men bothering to ask the question. Men just take what they want, particularly the powerful super action hero. That's what makes him so strong and powerful. He just takes what he wants. These are the things that we're working against. But then you think about it, you're telling me, you're getting all of this body language, you're telling me you believe you have your answer. If you have your answer, there's no risk in asking the question, is there? A workshop participant once asked me, so what, do I just go around asking everybody if I can have sex with them? No. And that's another good point. I use consent for myself to figure out when I feel safe asking the question. As men, consent is for us too. We often think of consent as just being a female thing. It's just something that women use to gatekeep men and to police men or to set their own safe boundaries. Well, yes, you can set safe boundaries, but consent is for everybody, regardless of where you are on the gender spectrum. So learning how, making a habit, as I said before, making a habit of asking those questions, and also thinking of consent as something that's ongoing. Consent is happening everywhere, all the time. It's not just something that happens at that moment before you have sexual intercourse. Consent exists in relationships with colleagues, with family members, with spouses, with friends, with you name it. Where is it? Look for it. Start to play around with it and investigate it. Make it a habit, because the more you make it a habit, the more ready you'll be when those magical moments happen with that person you're really attracted to and you're really turned on and boy, you'd really like to get close with them. But you need to ask and be clear. You want to be clear before you actually put part of your body directly up against in contact with someone else's body. We need to ask questions. We need to talk about consent. We need to interrupt the pop culture myths that we've been raised in, the stuff that we're surrounded by that tells us certain things about body language and body behavior and what dating should be like or what privileges we have to other people's bodies as males. This is the stuff we need to interrupt. This is rape culture. This is water.